Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're talking jerkbait fishing. Throwing a jerkbait during the fall transition is one of my favorite techniques. The fall transition will sneak up on you if you're not paying attention. Depending on where you are in the country, it can be so subtle. In the north, it's more obvious. The transition happens much more quickly. But in the south, those cooler nights, and I'm not talking cold nights, I'm talking just a few degrees cooler, a couple of nights in a row, is all it takes to set off the fall transition. And for the angler who's out there in the daytime, nothing has changed. Last week's daytime temperatures are the same as this week's, same as next week's. Nothing looks different, but the fish behavior has completely shifted, and it leaves guys just spun out. They don't know where their fish have gone. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand. The fall transition is tricky until you know it's happening. If you can realize, hey, this is the transition, then the steps are very clear. We've already covered that. So, one of the first patterns that comes in once that fall transition starts, and it's one of my favorite patterns, is throwing a jerkbait. And it happens almost overnight. And here's why. The second grass begins dying back in reservoirs that have a lot of grass, bass immediately start pulling to hard cover and to hard structure. Immediately, the jerkbait bite begins. For guys that are in highland reservoirs, places that are steeper, your bass were already on that stuff, and the jerkbait bite is just getting better and better by the day as the fish get more and more bait fish minded. They want to chase shad, they want to chase minnows, maybe little bluegill, maybe little perch. Whatever they're chasing, they're now bait fish minded, and the jerkbait bite will just erupt. As the nights get cooler, the bite gets better and better as we go into fall until it's just a wide open jerkbait bite. But you will be amazed right here on the front end of the fall transition how good the jerkbait bite can be. I think back to last year, because right now my fish here where I am today, my fish are still pretty summer minded. But I was on a trip last year where right on the front end they were chewing, and Cece and I got to just smash jerkbait fish. So today, I want to talk to you about a few different baits. What I've got 6 baits for you, but they're for very specific things. What I want you to understand as we go into fall is that your water temps are still pretty high. And as a result, the fish are very active. And when they do start eating minnows, they tend to be very aggressive. So we are focusing on jerkbaits that have a lot of movement, a lot of flash, and a lot of color. Flash or color, one or the other. That's very important. We're not so worried about baits that suspend perfectly and hover in the water column. That's more late fall into winter. Right now, we want aggression, we want movement, and we want fish to react. So let's start right here in the middle, and then we'll go to the ends of the spectrum, okay? The vast majority of my fall jerkbait fishing, especially through the transition, will be with one of these 2 baits. The Megabass Vision 110. That bait has set the gold standard of jerkbait fishing. And the Shimano World Minnow, a new player this year that has been taking the jerkbait bite by storm. A phenomenal bait. These 2 baits together, they're not even head to head to me. In my mind, this isn't a choice between which one do I throw. Both are amazing baits. A guy should not be standing in a tackle shop going, do I buy that one or do I buy that one? There will be a day where you need this one. There will be a day where you need this one. They're that different and they're both that important. So with that in mind, let's talk about the value of each bait. So the Vision 110 is the most balanced, the most refined of all the jerkbaits. Phenomenal action, phenomenal colors, phenomenal attention to detail. I tend to lean here when my water is cleaner. The cleaner the water, the more clear it is, the more I focus on a 110. The baits are just so refined, so precision, it makes a difference. I can also throw it on very light line. The hooks that it comes stock with are incredibly light. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I upgrade them. And in the video description, I will link my hook upgrades in case you want stronger hooks, so you can go to a little heavier line in case you need to get them away from cover. But stock hooks, you can fish on incredibly light line and get bit in the clearest of water. Now the World Minnow, these are stock hooks. They're larger, they're stronger. It's a very unique bait, so I can throw it on a little heavier line. Here I'm thinking clear water, smallmouth, open water, pulling them off isolated cover, catching spotted bass out in the open. Here I'm thinking the exact same thing, but I'm also thinking Chickamauga, Gunnersville, power fishing, right? I can take that same pattern, but now I can throw it on 12 or 14 pound line, and I can put some horsepower to those fish. What makes the World Minnow so unique is this flash boost. Can you see that shimmering in there? It's a piece of material that is suspended on springs, and when the bait stops moving, it doesn't. It continues to flash. It's secondary action. I have seen the power of that flash boost personally. I had a giant smallmouth come up on the bait right at the boat. It's like that dreaded last second deal. They pop up, my bait is this far from the surface, so is the smallmouth, and I'm right here. You know that fish isn't going to eat, only she did. And I swear it's because of that. It's the secondary movement inside that bait where the bait's sitting still, but there's still quiver going on. That fish came unglued, and I got a truly giant smallie in the boat that I 100% credit to that. And I fell in love with this bait since then. I caught a ton of fish on it all through the spring and the summer. It's a killer option. So again, they are so different. This one leans more to the finesse. This one leans more to the power, but both need to be in the lineup if you are a serious jerkbait angler. Now, there's always a time for smaller, and there's always a time for deeper. Sometimes you need big baits too. That's a whole different animal. We're not even going there during the transition. I'm staying mid-size and small. But going deeper, couple more baits for you. The Vision 110 +1. So if you look, the body is the same, but the bill is angled differently. This bait dives steeper with a larger bill, so it will get down deeper. But again, more of a finesse approach. And then this is the Jackal Re-Range MR, medium runner. So just like those two are a finesse and more of a power, here you're more of a finesse, and here you're more power. A lot more flash, a lot more aggressive, a lot louder. Just more drawing power from a distance. So, murkier water, just aggressive fish. If they're actively on bait fish, if they're busting shad, and you want to pull them away from real bait fish to your bait, that louder or flashier bait is a huge deal. And then smaller baits. In the fall, a lot of places, the bait fish are tiny, and downsizing is a huge deal. If they're a little bit deeper, this is the 13 Fishing Whippersnapper. It's a very small bait. I mean, compare it to just a Vision 110. It's a very small bait. Hopefully you can see the difference. But that little guy catches them. And then the other one, if they're up shallow. So here, if they're out deeper, say you're fishing outside points or over the tops of humps and rock piles, I'll throw that. If fish are starting to push bait, Maybe they're starting to corral them into a cove. This is a Lucky Craft flash pointer, but it's the 100 size. The larger size is a full profiled bait. The 100 size is very small. Still has 3 hooks. You can see my hooks are all bent out if you look closely. This bait has done some work for me. There's something special about the Flash Pointer 100, especially in the fall when they're pushing bait really shallow. That bait will get in there and fish really shallow. So that's just 6 baits. And you don't need all of them. Maybe you already know my bait fish are small. Well, that makes it pretty easy. Maybe you know I like to fish outside points. I like to fish bluff walls. That makes it pretty easy. If you don't know, you're staying right there in the middle. Color is a huge deal. There's typically 3 ways I'm going to go this time of year. One is sort of wimping out, and that is like the matte and the ghost colors. I say wimping out, it's not wimping out at all, but what I mean by that is it's not one of the extremes. Those colors will always work. If you're going out on a new lake and you don't know what they're going to eat, throwing a ghost minnow, throwing something like that, a matte finish, although not this particular matte finish, but a matte finish will get you those bites. Let me pull out another one. Where's a natural color bait? Here's a Rapala and a really natural color, right? Sort of an olive color. Those baits will always get bit. So if you don't know what your fish are up to, that's the way to go. But I have found during the fall transition that those are very rarely the baits that get on an amazing bite. If you want to go out there and just crush them, that tends to happen with either baits that are really reflective or baits that are really bold and have a lot of color. Those are my tricks this time of year. I'm either going really chromy, something with a lot of flash, a lot of pop that will shine light out really far, or I'm going to something super bright, super bold. I throw a lot of chartreuse this time of year. A lot of chartreuse. Even in the baits where you don't see a lot of it, like this matte finish, there's still chartreuse in there. I throw a lot of chartreuse. Look at this re-range. I throw a lot of that bright, bold stuff, and then again, a lot of that really chromy stuff. Those are the baits that they don't eat every day, but when they get on them, they go ballistic for them. So again, if you're just trying to find out if you have a jerkbait bite, the ghostier colors, that's where you'll find out if you have a bite. But if you want to just get on a wide open bite, you start playing with those outliers. And on the day that they want to eat them, they all want to eat them. I don't know why, but they do. And then as far as jerkbait gear goes, this comes as no surprise. I think everybody in the world knows my favorite rod for throwing a jerkbait, hands down, is the X-Pride 610 Medium. The X-Pride 610 Medium B, the new version of the X-Pride, is finally in stock. You can get them. Last I looked, you could still get the A's too. Both are phenomenal. There's no difference in the actions whatsoever. Both are amazing jerkbait rods. It's the perfect action for working a jerkbait. Jerkbaits are one of the few rods. There's a lot of techniques where I just try to glaze over and tell you that like a medium heavy or a heavy rod will be great. A jerkbait is one of the techniques where a specific action is everything, because you need a rod that is crisp in the tip section, crisp enough to give that perfect darting action in the water, start and stop with no transitions, but then it has to be soft enough in the mid to not rip little tiny treble hooks out of these fish's face. And that is a very difficult blend, and very few rods do it well. So that X-Pride is my favorite for this technique. I typically pair it up with an Aldebaran with either 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon. Again, you can go lighter or heavier if you need to adjust. but I love that combo. A little more budget minded, or at least middle of the road minded, the Corrado 610 medium is a killer option. It's just, overall package just weighs a little bit more, but the action is a perfect match. So the Corrado paired to a Corrado 70 MGL is a phenomenal package, perfect action. It just isn't so feather light. It's still super light, but it's not as light as an X-Pride Aldebaran combo, but just a killer combo. And then I'll link you a budget option as well, because the right jerkbait rod is everything. Again, we're right on the front end of that fall jerkbait bite. This is the time to get those baits, to get it dialed in, to get a feel for the technique, hopefully get on a wide open bite. But either way, you want to get that technique dialed, because as we go into fall, that jerkbait bite just gets better and better and better. And you don't want to be playing with it later. You want to have it dialed in. Hopefully this helps you guys get started early. You can get fired up and you can go out there and catch some of these fish. I love the jerkbait bite. It's one of my favorite bites of the whole year. I know I have a lot of favorites, but it is one of my absolute favorite techniques. I get such a kick out of it. Hopefully this video helped you. If it did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.